The house held its breath. Shadow didn't budge from the window. His growl dropped to a low, tremulous hum, a sound not of fear but warning. Rachel pressed Emily to her chest and backed slowly into the hallway, her gaze flitting from the darkened nursery to the flickering shadows beyond the stairs. The moonlight was the only illumination, casting their movements in pale blue. The burn mark on Emily's neck pulsed with warmth beneath her palm. She knew now this wasn't new. It wasn't even from this life alone. Somehow, someway, this had happened before, to Emily or to the girl in the photos. And Shadow had been there both times. Rachel crept downstairs, one hand gripping the banister, the other holding Emily tightly as Shadow descended beside her. The dog's focus was unshakable, drawn not to the front door or the windows, but once again to the basement. The door stood wide open now. Rachel hadn't touched it. She swallowed her fear and stepped through. This time, she flipped on the switch. Light sputtered alive, revealing a space that no longer looked merely forgotten. It looked inhabited. On the concrete floor was a circle of ash, blackened at the edges. In the middle, a single child's shoe sat upright. Around it, more chalk drawings had appeared, this time in thick, jagged strokes. The same dog, the same girl. But now they were surrounded by eyes. Countless, watching eyes. Rachel's blood turned to ice. Emily stirred in her arms. A murmur escaped her lips. Not a cry, not a babble. A word. Lila. Rachel froze. What did you say? The baby looked up at her, then toward the far wall where a crack had begun to snake across the foundation. Her tiny hand lifted, pointing. Shadow moved first. He walked calmly to the wall and began to dig, not with panic but certainty. The drywall crumbled easily, revealing something behind it. Wood. Charred. Old. Rachel helped clear it, and soon they found it. A door, sealed shut, blackened around the frame. Shadow whimpered. Rachel braced herself and pulled it open. Inside was a narrow room, no larger than a walk-in closet. The walls were lined with faded insulation, broken toys, and a rusted cot. Scattered across the floor were remnants of clothing, a teddy bear missing its head, and on the far wall, scratched deep into the wood, one name again and again. Lila, Lila, Lila. Rachel sank to her knees, horror blooming in her chest. This wasn't just a forgotten storage room. It had been a prison. And whoever Lila was, she had been left here. Emily squirmed, reaching out toward the cot. Her legs kicked, not weakly, not spasmodically, deliberately. She wanted to be let down. Rachel hesitated, then placed her gently on the floor. Emily stood, on her own. No support, no brace. Just stood. Rachel let out a strangled sob, both disbelief and joy crashing over her. Shadow nuzzled the child gently, then turned, barking sharply into the hidden room, as if calling something out. The air shifted. From behind the wall came a cold wind, impossible in a sealed basement. And then, for a moment, Rachel saw her. A little girl in a tattered dress, long hair, pale feet, standing at the edge of the shadows. Her face was familiar, not in the way of recognition, but remembrance, like a name whispered in a dream you can't quite place. The girl looked at Emily, and Emily looked back. They didn't speak. They didn't have to. Then the girl smiled, small and sad, and turned away, and was gone. In the stillness that followed, the basement felt lighter, warmer, as though some pressure had been released. Some lingering sorrow finally lifted. Rachel wrapped her arms around Emily, who giggled, truly giggled, for the first time since the accident. Her feet shuffled beneath her, finding balance. She took a step, then another. Upstairs, the lights flickered back to life. Rachel looked at Shadow, who had already started up the stairs, tail wagging gently. He paused at the top, waiting for them, eyes soft now, almost proud. The next day, Rachel returned to Dr. Keene's office with a notebook, the video footage, and her daughter, now walking slowly, steadily, beside the dog that had brought her back. Dr. Keene studied Emily for a long time, then bent down, tears in her eyes. "You remember, didn't you?" she whispered, brushing a hand against the child's cheek. "You remembered what Lila wanted you to." Rachel sat down, Voice hushed. Who was she? The doctor hesitated, then finally spoke. She was my sister. She died in that house when I was 10. They said she fell. But I always knew. Something kept her there. Something she couldn't leave behind. I've spent my life looking for a way to reach her. I didn't expect this. They sat in silence, broken only by Emily's delighted squeals as Shadow gently nudged her stuffed toy closer. The bond between them was unshakable now. Something forged who shared memory, pain, and mystery. Shadow's mission was done. Or maybe it had just begun again. A week later, Rachel opened the front door to find a black van parked outside once more. The man stepped out. Same uniform, same silence. He didn't ask questions. Didn't need to. Shadow turned to Emily, licked her cheek, then walked down the steps without hesitation. Rachel watched him go, her heart aching with a gratitude too big for words. She picked up Emily and whispered into her hair, "We won't forget her. We'll never forget." Behind them, the wind rustled the trees, soft and sweet. And somewhere, far off in another forgotten town, a child cried out in a voice no one could hear, until a black van arrived, and a dog stepped out of the shadows. Rachel's fingers trembled as she reached for the basement door, its rusted hinges creaking wider under the pressure of a breathless silence. Shadow stayed close, his body tense, nose pointed toward the darkness like a compass locked on some invisible thread. The dim hallway light spilled down the first few steps, but below that there was only shadow and cold. She whispered her daughter's name, but no sound came back. The air smelled damp, stale, and unfamiliar, still wrapped in nothing but panic. Rachel descended, each footstep echoing like a warning she wished she could heed. At the bottom of the stairs, the concrete floor was cool beneath her bare feet. And there, in the far corner of the room, was Emily. She sat upright against the wall, her tiny hands resting flat on the ground, legs splayed before her. Her eyes were wide and unblinking, not with fear, but focus. Her legs twitched, first one, then the other, not a spasm, not a reflex. Purposeful. Rachel fell to her knees, tears blurring her vision. She scooped her daughter into her arms and whispered 100 frantic reassurances, though Emily seemed calm, even curious. Shadow stood beside them, not barking, not moving, but watching the room like something still lingered. Rachel scanned the basement. It wasn't the dusty, half-empty storage space. She remembered. One entire wall was covered in faint chalk drawings, stick figures, circles, what looked like a dog, large, dark, with eyes too big. Crude, childlike symbols surrounded it, spirals and lines, and something that resembled a wheelchair. She swallowed hard. Back upstairs, she laid Emily in her crib, pulled the blanket around her, and sat in the rocking chair until sunrise. Her daughter didn't cry, didn't stir. Shadow curled up at the crib's base, one eye open, waiting. The next morning, Rachel drove to Dr. Keene's office, the video of Emily in the basement cued and ready. She set her phone on the desk, her voice trembling as she described everything. The movement, the chalk drawings, the basement door left ajar. Dr. Keene watched silently. When the video ended, she leaned back and folded her hands. "He's found it," she said softly. "Or maybe it found him." Rachel stared. "Found what?" The doctor didn't answer at first. Instead, she opened a locked drawer in her desk and pulled out a yellowed folder, stamped with a red "restricted" across the front. She slid across the desk. That dog, Shadow, was part of a government-adjacent experiment, a psychological rehabilitation unit formed after years of failed neurological studies. The military couldn't understand why traditional therapy wasn't working for children with trauma-induced paralysis, so they turned to instinct. Rachel's brow furrowed. "You mean therapy animals?" "More than that," Dr. Keene said. Shadow was trained to detect patterns of emotional and neurological disruptions in children, hyper-attuned to movement, stress signals, even subconscious intent. But something happened during his last deployment. A little girl went missing during a case upstate. Shadow found her, but she didn't survive. After that, he changed. Shut down. The project was dismantled. And now you think he's what? Healing Emily? I think he's finishing something he couldn't before. Rachel flipped through the file. There were blurry photos, reports of abnormal behavior, unexplained recoveries. One photo stopped her cold. Shadow, younger, standing beside a girl in a wheelchair, her face turned away, but the room behind them looked familiar. Familiar in a way that makes your spine tighten before your brain catches up. It was Emily's nursery. She dropped the photo. I just moved into that house. Dr. Keene's voice grew quieter. That house was once part of a rehabilitation center. Run down, forgotten, shut down after multiple allegations of neglect. I looked it up after we met. I had no idea until now that you lived there, or that your daughter... She didn't finish. Rachel stood slowly, her mind spinning. She needed answers. She needed truth, and it wasn't in any file. It was in her house. That night, Rachel waited until Emily was asleep. She sat on the nursery floor beside Shadow and stared at the floorboards beneath the crib. The dog rose without prompting and began to scratch at them with practiced urgency. She helped him pull them up. Beneath the boards, wrapped in old newspaper and cloth, was a notebook. The cover was faded leather, peeling at the edges. Inside were sketches, some crude, some heartbreakingly detailed. A girl in a wheelchair, smiling. The same dog, always by her side. Notes scrawled in a child's hand. He's not just a dog. He knows when I'm scared. When I dream, he barks at the bad ones. Sometimes I forget I can't walk. Then, in smaller letters, I think he's from before, from when I was someone else. Rachel closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest. The truth was coiling inside her like a storm. Emily wasn't just recovering. She was remembering, or perhaps reliving. Later that night, the power flickered and went out. The house plunged into silence. Rachel reached for her phone, but found it dead. Shadow was already at the window, stiff as stone, staring into the trees. Rachel followed his gaze. At the edge of the woods, beneath the moonlight, stood a figure. It didn't move. It didn't wave. It simply waited. Shadow growled, deep and low. Rachel lifted Emily from the crib, clutching her close. In the reflection of the window, she caught a glimpse of something she hadn't noticed before. A burn mark, faint round, on the back of Emily's neck. It matched the ones in the file. Rachel turned away from the window, heart racing, and whispered to the dark, "What do you try to show me?" The road wound through dense forest, headlights slicing through trees like pale knives. Daniels drove without speaking, his jaw tight, eyes darting from mirror to mirror. Emily sat in the back, cradling the baby against her chest. She'd stopped crying hours ago, settling into an eerie silence that felt almost too aware. Rex lay beside them, every muscle coiled, every breath measured. They were all waiting for what none of them could name. Emily whispered to the child, fingers brushing her cheek, "You're safe now, Claire. We won't let them take you." Danielle's voice broke through the quiet. "We're about 20 minutes out. There's an old ranger station off Route 6. It hasn't been used in years. No cameras, no paper trail. My contact will meet us there." Emily glanced out the window. "You trust them?" "With our lives," Daniel said, but even he didn't sound convinced. 10 more minutes passed before the trees gave way to a clearing. The ranger station loomed ahead, 2 stories of timber and glass lawn abandoned to moss and dust. Daniels pulled in and killed the engine. "No lights," he said. "We move fast. Rex, stay close." The old dog was already at the door before Daniels finished speaking, his nose in the air, tail stiff. Emily followed, baby wrapped tightly in blankets, her heart beating too fast. The wind had picked up again, dry this time, but restless. Inside, the air smelled of old paper and forgotten years. Daniel swept the room quickly, checking corners, unlocking the back hallway. "We wait here. My contact's 10 minutes out." Emily sat on a battered bench, watching the fireless hearth. The baby shifted, lips parting in a breath too slow. Something was wrong. "Daniels," she said, suddenly alert. "Her temperature's dropping again." He crossed the room, leaning down. "There's a med kit in the truck. I'll grab it. Stay here." The door swung closed behind him. The baby gave a soft whimper, and then Rex growled. It wasn't his usual warning sound. This one was low, rising like a storm building in his throat. Emily turned, following his gaze, and froze. The hallway door, the one Daniels had locked moments before, was ajar. Her breath hitched. Someone was already inside. She moved slowly, clutching the baby tighter. Rex stepped forward, hackles raised, his body between her and the darkness beyond the hall. From the shadows, a figure emerged. Not Harmon. Someone else. Younger. Dressed in black. No badge, no insignia. Eyes too calm, too empty. You've made this harder than it had to be, the man said. She's not yours. Emily backed away. She's not yours, either. She doesn't belong in your world, the man replied. She's an asset, intellectual property. You don't even know what she's carrying. Rex snarled and lunged. The man was fast. He drew a stun baton and swept low, striking Rex across the shoulder. The dog yelped, staggered, but didn't fall. Emily screamed. And then Daniels was there, bursting through the door behind the man, gun raised. Down. The agent turned, struck out, but Daniels fired once, twice. The shots echoed like thunder. The intruder crumpled to the floor. Silence. Deafening. Rex limped to Emily's side, trembling, blood staining his flank. She fell to her knees, sobbing, holding both him and the baby close. Daniels kicked the baton away, breathing hard. We've got to move. There's no time. He's not alone. Outside, distant engines roared to life. More were coming. Daniels pulled open the trapdoor beneath the hearth. This way. Emergency exit. Underground tunnel leads to the river. Emily descended first, careful not to jostle the baby. Rex followed slowly, limping but determined. Daniels came last, sealing the door behind them. The tunnel was narrow, damp, smelling of mildew and stone. The baby stirred in her arms but didn't cry. Emily whispered to her, voice cracking. You hold on, sweetheart. Just a little longer. Light appeared at the end of the tunnel. When they emerged, the river stretched ahead like black glass under skies scattered with stars. A small boat waited, engine idling. A woman stepped out, short, sharp-eyed, wrapped in a leather coat. You must be Emily. Daniels nodded. Get them out. Safe house in Redcliffe. No phones. No names. The woman held out her arms. I'll take her. Emily hesitated, clinging tighter. It's okay, Daniels said gently. She'll protect her. Emily nodded and handed the baby over, tears in her eyes. Rex leaned against her, exhausted but standing. The woman looked at Rex, then at Daniels. He comes too. Daniels blinked. You sure? She nodded. He's part of this now. They climbed into the boat and pushed off, the engine humming low. As the river carried them into the dark, Emily looked back. The station was glowing, not with lights, but with fire. Somewhere behind them, someone had decided to erase everything. But not everyone. Emily looked down at the baby, safe in the woman's arms, and then at Rex, wounded, tired, but alive. We're not finished, she whispered. They think they ended it, but they just started something bigger. Rex raised his head to the wind, ears twitching, eyes forward. The fight wasn't over. It was just beginning.